Hey, love. Welcome to Fill Up Your Cup, the self care space for women who do it all but still choose to pour into themselves first. I am your host, Kiara Noel, and every week we're diving into real conversations about wellness, beauty, boundaries, and building a life that feels as good as it looks. So grab your coffee. I got matcha today. Yeah. And take a deep breath and let's get into it. This is your first time tuning into my podcast. I want to thank you so much for being here. When you're finished, take a moment, share this with somebody who you feel needs a little extra love today. And thank you for taking this time to fill up your cup with me. Let's get into today's video, or let's get into today's episode. I'm very excited about today's episode because we are getting into something that I am actively putting together. I have always been a routine girly, but I what's the word I'm looking for? When I think about creating a routine, I'm thinking about productivity, how to do as much as possible, how to do it as efficiently as possible. And usually when we think of routines, that's what we're thinking of. We're thinking of what is the best way to get everything on my to-do list done. What are we getting done? How are we getting it done? Where are we getting it done? Setting up systems that support our goals and things that we want in life. But let me tell you, you need to also have a self-care routine, self-care system that is catered to the things that you need that supports you reaching your goals. I think that often we're so focused on the outcome of our routines that we don't focus on what it's actually going to take to get the routine done. I know for me, y'all, I have no perception of time. I will have a 20-item to-do list, achieve it some days, and bomb horribly other days. But I found that when I started shifting the way that I think about routines and the way that I set them up and what I include in them, I found that I was able to get more done because I wasn't burning out. Y'all, I've been burnt out several times in my life. And as someone who wears many hats and does many things, it is very easy for me to get burnt out. But I found that I kept getting burned out and getting to the point of frustration with myself. I would beat myself up for not being able to achieve all the things that I wanted to achieve. If it took longer than I thought it should take, well, why is it doing this? Why is it doing that? Why can't it just be a simple task? Why does every task have to be broken down into three or four or five more things? And when you are just trying to get the next thing done, you take yourself out of the present. And I want to encourage not only you, but myself that we're going to get more things done. We're going to get more things done and we're going to feel better about it. For my first point today is that consistency is better than intensity when it comes to self care. I think when we think about our to do list and our productivity and the things that we are and we aren't getting done, we equate the amount of things getting done, working, and how much closer we're getting to the end goal. These things do not directly correlate. That is something that we learn. That's something that we have inherited. When we focus on getting as many things done as possible, we ignore how much effort that takes. We always hear, well, you should work smarter, not harder. Well, when it comes to self care, working smarter is just making sure that you show up consistently. We see this with working out all the time. You do not have to be there in the gym at 100% every single day in order to reach your result faster. Because eventually you're going to get to a point where you become exhausted and you stop and then you have to start over again. It is better to find a way to maintain consistency than to be so intensive, short burst of intensity. really, because there's always going to be a start and a stop. And usually you're going to stop as quickly as you started. So when it comes to building these routines, you want to focus on showing up consistently. I know for me, something that I want to get into more is journaling. There are going to be days where I write 5 pages, and there are going to be days where I write a paragraph. Now, if I want to build the habit of journaling, I cannot expect it to look the same every day. But what's more important it is that I do journal every day, is that I do give myself an opportunity to write down my thoughts, to process my emotions, to really let go of the day. I am better off doing that. Even if it's for 15 minutes one day, an hour the next day, I am better off showing in that capacity each day than to tell myself as a part of my routine every day I'm going to do 30 minutes of writing. There are going to be days where I don't have the emotional capacity to do 30 days of writing. There are going to be days where I don't have the emotional capacity to do 3 minutes of writing. I already know. But to give myself an opportunity to get out my thoughts, to get out my emotions, to let go of all of the burdens of the day in whatever capacity, I am more likely to keep the habit. So figure out what things don't need such intense movement, especially when it's coming towards things regarding self-care, regarding your emotional stability, regarding the ways in which you pour into yourself, regarding in which the ways that you show up for yourself. It doesn't have to be in a specific way, at a specific time, at a specific length each and every day. Just really focus on getting some time in, some intensity in. And over time, you'll build the habit. And before you know it, you'll be like, yeah, no, I need this 30 minutes. Let me go ahead and write down all of the things. It's great to strive for those things. It's great to say, you know what, I would love to just spend 30 minutes every day doing XYZ. But if you choose to not do it because you don't have the 30 minutes, you're selling yourself short. You're not always going to have 30 minutes. Our lives change daily. And it's best to show up consistently and work with the flow of life than to try to work against it because you set a specific deadline. Okay, so when we get into this self-care routine, I want you guys to focus on more than one type of self-care. I've covered that before in earlier episodes, what different types of self-care are, and I want to break it down for just a second today because there are different types of self-care that you need to pay attention to and that you need to add into your routine. There is physical self-care, emotional self-care, mental self-care, spiritual self-care. I know those are at least the 4 pillars for myself. These look different in my daily routine. For me, physical self-care is getting in some type of movement. One day it could be a Pilates workout, one day it could be a stretch, one day it could be a walk. All of these things are different and take different amount of times. But doing something like this on almost a daily basis is going to keep my physical self-care in check. And by that, I mean, there won't be a point in time where I feel like I'm not working towards my goal because I do something daily. Now, it's not going to look the same daily, but I will eliminate the feeling of, man, like I must really not want this goal. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. It's been forever since I've been to the gym. You get so hard on yourself that you can't even put into perspective. Well, you know what? I did go for that walk yesterday. Or you know what? I stretched really good today. Tomorrow I'm going to do XYZ. Slow down your momentum when you are so hard on yourself. And I say that to y'all and I say that to myself because I am my own worst critic. It's so bad. But every day I'm learning to be a little bit nicer to myself and really take into account where I am in life and where I am um in my goals and what am I doing versus what am I not doing. As far as emotional health, I've already talked about journaling every day. That's what I do to support my emotional health. But some days it might not be journaling. Some days it might be catching up with an old friend. Sometimes it might be dancing the strut in my living room. Sometimes it might be just having a real good cry. I don't know about y'all, but it's one like right here for me. I'm gonna cry at some point this week. And that's okay because I've been holding that cry in for a minute. Not on purpose, but just I've been holding that in for a minute. And a release is going to make me feel so much better. When it comes to your mental self-care, a way to add that into your routine is journaling. Works amazing. It does. But doing things that challenge the way that you think. We all have experienced trauma. This world right now is traumatic with a capital T. And it is going to look different for each and every one of us, the ways in which we process all that's going on in the world, but make sure that you do process what's going on in the world, what's going on in the past, whether that be therapy, whether that be doing research on things in the past that have bothered you and really taking into consideration your circumstances and how they impact you. And like I said, it's going to look different for each and every one of us, but though that's another thing that you want to pay attention to in your self-care routine. Okay. Last thing for the self-care routine is your spiritual self-care. For me, that is probably the thing that is filled up daily. I'm at the point where I read my Bible every single day, where I am at church several times a week, where I'm speaking with my spiritual siblings on the phone. Like that for me is a daily. And it looks different. Choir rehearsal, church, Bible study, having those conversations with my spiritual siblings, spending time in prayer. All of those things have different lengths of times, have different requirements and different outcomes. But as long as I am doing something to move closer to my relationship with God, it is going to show through in my life. And I won't feel as if I'm not working on that goal because I am. I'm just not showing up in the exact same way every day. I want you to think about it like this. Most people don't have a uniform. Actually, forget it. Most people don't have a uniform, but most jobs that require a uniform does not mean that you wear the same exact thing every day. For even people in the medical industry, right, that wear scrubs. You're not wearing the same pair of scrubs when you go in for your shift. Might be the same color, might be the same cut, might be the same company. But once you wear it and it's dirty, you have to put on something else until it's washed again, right? So you are showing up. Even though it's work, even though you gotta be there, even though it's a requirement, even though it's gonna help you meet your goals, you don't show up in the same thing every day. You put on something else. And even though it may look the same, everything is still not the same. You can have on a different pair of socks, different pair of underwear. Maybe that day you decided you were going to be fancy. You did something different with your hair. Like, even when we show up every day, we don't look exactly the same. So we cannot expect a routine to be exactly the same every day. In fact, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. If we want to continue to push forward and move forward, even if there's a period of time in which you are doing the same thing every day, you're going to have to switch something in order to make that progress forward. And so when you think about what your self-care routine looks like, do not focus on showing up the exact same way every day. You will be an insane person thinking that you're somehow moving forward because you're showing up and you're checking everything off the list. It's not how it works. I love what I am saying fits into my next point, which is to audit your current habits. And those things that I listed earlier, your physical, your emotional, your mental, your spiritual, what are you doing to improve on those things? Maybe not daily, but weekly. What are you doing to grow in those areas? These are all core parts of who you are. These are things that are going to keep you from burning out. These are things that are going to keep you inspired, that are going to keep you going, that are matter more than a paycheck, that are just true essentials to who you are. What are you currently doing to move forward in the direction of who you want to be, especially when it comes to self-care? Because self-care is taking note of the areas in which we want to improve, in which we need to fill ourselves back up in order to go out and do. What are you doing in those areas today that is getting you closer to being able to refill your cup? What are you doing that is replenishing all the things that you are giving out into the world? You need to take an inventory of those things because you may find that you are not doing anything that supports your emotional health or doing anything that supports your emotional health. You are crashing. Oh, I say this as a retired crash out. You're crashing out. It does not serve you or serve God or serve whoever it is that you want to become if you cannot handle your emotions. If you are crashing out on a daily basis, you have to have support in that area. And by taking audit, taking inventory of the ways in which you do support these things, it'll help you find those holes so that you can patch them up and you can start to refill your cup. I know for me, I told y'all, I'm a retired crash out. Is retired the word? But I used to do things for the plot. You do things for the plot. I don't care what the outcome is. Retired crash out. For me, one of my first experiences of regulating my emotions was songwriting as somebody who is, for the most part, emotionally regulated. Now, I found that I have returned back to songwriting when I am feeling very emotional, when my feelings are hurt, when I'm angry. I find it's best to take that emotion and put it in a song. Even if it's like something very little, like I have so many little songs I've written down over the years. And I know that it's for future use, for future reference, because God has been calling me back to music, but that's another story for another day. But I have found a way to support my emotional health. And even if that means some days spending an hour writing a song, or say maybe some lyrics just come to mind, and it could even be just a little chorus. I yesterday wrote a chorus and I just kept repeating it over and over and over again, and it helped me work through my emotions. Literally, I'm gonna read it real quick because I don't remember what it was. It depending on how. Here it is. This is personal, but I'm gonna share it anyway. So I'm not gonna say any of what I have been thinking, but this is 4 lines that I just kept repeating in my head, and it was helping me process my emotions. It literally says, "Where is your check mark? Thought I was clear from the start. Are you walking around with all a heart? Somehow you keep missing the mark." And I just repeated it over and over and over and over again in my head. And instead of crashing out, I was able to just let it out, let it out, let it out, and go on about my day. But really take inventory in every area. What are you actively doing to support those parts of your self-care routine, and figure out ways in which, not one specific ways, but multiple ways in which you can support that part of your self-care routine. Because like I said, you won't always have the same amount of time, but if you have a variety of ways to support it, you are more likely to do it. I touched on this a little bit earlier. Um, as far as the timing, and I really want to send it home with that. Even if you only have 5 minutes, it will start the momentum that you need to build consistency in a self-care routine. Even you only have a couple minutes, showing up for yourself is going to benefit you in ways that will compound over time. And as long as you do that, show up here for 60 seconds, show up here 5 minutes, show up here an hour, you will be actively working towards filling up your cup. And I will say this, the more that you do, the more you will see how much it helps and the more you will want to do. I had this thought come across my mind. Yeah, was it yesterday or was it the day before? Either way, basically, it's the thought that the more hard things I do, the more I know I can do hard things. And I think it's very similar with self care. The more time I nurture myself, the more I know how much I need to be nurtured. Very similar. Oh my goodness. I didn't know how long this episode was going to be, but she's good. She's good. Okay. My last and my final point for today, going back to auditing your current habits, create a self care menu. First off, I want to scream this from the rooftops. Create a self care menu. Create a list of things you can do to pour into yourself. I talked about this in previous episodes. If you actually went and made a list, then all you have to do is figure out where to plug it in. But make a list. Go ahead, take a sheet of paper, divide it up, okay? Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. What are things that you like to do that supports each and every one of those areas? And when you sit down and you plan out your week, pick something from each of those 4 quadrants that's going to support your self-care. When you do this, I promise you'll be like, why have I been putting this off all this time? But you'll be grateful that you are now doing it. The way that this lighting is going in and out, I'm sorry, y'all. But you'll be grateful that you have learned how to start pouring into your own cup. And really, this is how you catch the self-care bug. This is how I caught it. This is how I became passionate about it on top of working in the self-care industry and see how it directly impacts people. Try it. Try it. Even if you just write down 4 5-minute tasks and find 5 minutes for each in the week, you will be so glad that you did. You will be so glad that you did. Alrighty, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If this episode has refilled your cup even a little bit, give this a like, a comment, a share, especially if you feel like there's someone in your life who needs a little bit of filling up as well. I wanted to give a little update because in my last episode, if you stayed to the end, I shared that I was hosting my very first self-care event, which I'm so excited about. And I have officially announced it. It is happening Friday, February 20th. I don't necessarily feel comfortable putting all the location info here, but if that's something that you want to attend, you want to come out, you want to meet me, you want to meet other people, you want to have a solo date, you want to indulge yourself and immerse yourself in what self-care is and start to build those things for yourself, I will have my Instagram and the information for it linked below. Come on out and have a good time with me. It's a pajama party. Like, who doesn't love a pajama party? I love a pajama party. And I hope to see you there. Once again, thank you so much for watching, listening, whichever capacity that you've allowed me to pour into you today. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.